Full housekeeping notes. Again, this is recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel for anyone that wasn't able to attend or is watching this later. Or if you want to access it again, it's going to be available there, which we have linked in our emails. Also, we have, if you guys have any questions, you can use the chat feature at the top. If anyone's unfamiliar with Teams, it is at the top of your screen. We are going to monitor, Pam and Indy will monitor the chat throughout. So if you have any questions, feel free to type those in. We are going to open it up at the end for questions where we can go through kind of anything that we've covered for this morning. But for now, if you could type those in the chat and they will cover them. Let's see what else. I think that's it. So we'll go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Give me one moment here. All right, perfect. And if at any time you guys can't, something happens, like if I'm cutting out or anything like that, obviously I'm sure Pam or Indy, please let me know. And we're going to go ahead and start in the dashboard. I do have my notes here, so if I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. So if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. So we'll go ahead and get started on your dashboard. I do want to cover a couple quick things before we jump into portraits, just kind of a quick overview of what we're looking at on the dashboard. Some exciting news that we're lucky to be able to share with you this morning. Just an update for our YB Pay users. When you're purchasing a yearbook, we have added Apple Pay and Google Pay, which is awesome. It'll just make it easier for your families to purchase a yearbook, which will hopefully increase your yearbook sales. So a couple of really cool features that they've updated there. We have our yearbook support and help. So again, I always like to point this out anytime I am meeting with a yearbook team of advisors, that we have our yearbook support here. They are a wonderful team. They're available to you during normal business hours. You can reach them through chat. So the chat feature is available on your yearbook website. During those hours, you'll see that at the bottom of your screen, a little chat button, or you can email and call them. All they need from you when you call is your job number, which is listed at the top of your screen here. And then that allows them to get onto your yearbook's website and be able to help you with any questions you have. So again, they are a great resource. Another great resource is our help feature here at the top. So I hope you guys are enjoying this and utilizing this help feature. It's really nice, really intuitive, has lots of information in there. Pretty much anything that you can think of is loaded in this help center, including what I wanted to be able to share is our new webinars. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in webinars, yearbook webinars. So our team up at headquarters at corporate is going to be hosting yearbook webinars as well. I would definitely utilize these. I'm going to go ahead and open those up so you guys can see the schedule. Hopefully you got an email. They are also on your yearbook dashboard. So if we jump back to your yearbook dashboard, I believe they are under important news and updates. So you can see right here, you have the next webinar where you can sign up. They have 3 webinars listed that are coming up. They actually have one today at 3, which is during our afternoon session, but these will be recorded, so you can always access them later. And then Manage Your Portrait Library is coming up, and then Flowing Your Portraits. So these would be good to, if you have any follow-up after today. These are also other avenues you guys can check out as far as help with your yearbook site. They will be adding more. It's my understanding they'll be adding more webinars, so you'll just be able to check those out. I'm sure you'll get alerts on your dashboard, and then you can sign up for them right here on your yearbook website. If we scroll down, the yearbook video library, they have updated that, and you can actually access this from typing it into the help feature, but it's right here at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. All right, so some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with our video tutorials. This is where they are housed now. So they just have them organized in a nicer way. I kind of looked through it last night. So it makes it a little easier when you guys are looking for something. If you're just looking for something about managing access, covers and themes, designing your yearbook, or it goes into portraits, they're all kind of organized in a way that helps you to be able to find those. And of course, my favorite thing about the webinars or the video tutorials is they're super short. They're like 2 to 3 minutes long. I think the longest one is 4 minutes. And you can quickly just click on those at any time when you guys have questions. Again, they cover the whole entire website. It's a nice little video of the website that kind of goes over what you're looking for. So going back to the dashboard, the last thing that I wanted to cover before we jump into portraits is the unassigned, oh, there we go, the unassigned portraits. So this is super exciting. For those of you who haven't been in Yearbook before, you have these pesky unassigned portraits that show up in your portrait library, which we're going to get into here in a moment. But now you have an alert. So if there are any unassigned portraits, definitely pay attention to these. You will only have this alert if you have portraits in that folder. So if you see this alert on your dashboard, definitely check those out. That's what we're going to kind of start off on. But I wanted to just point that out, that that is new and a really nice feature to alert you guys that there are students that need to be assigned to their correct homeroom or grade. So with that said, we're going to jump right into portraits. And of course, Indy or Pam, if I miss anything, just feel free to jump in. All right, your portrait library, which can be accessed under Manage Assets, Portrait Images. If you do not see your portraits, portraits are generally uploaded about approximately 2 weeks after your retake day. However, if your school does composites, there is going to, that could possibly delay the portraits. So if you are not seeing the portraits right now in your portrait library, reach out to your yearbook specialist and have them check on that. And they can probably work with our team to get, to put a rush on those composites. It's probably just that we're waiting for the composite verifies or the composites to be verified by the school. Once we have those verifications back, we're able to upload those portraits to your portrait library. So if you guys have any additional questions, please reach out to your yearbook rep after this meeting in regards to your portraits not being uploaded on the site yet. All right, so going into the unassigned, we'll start there. All right, and this is my demo site, just so everyone's aware. That's why it looks kind of crazy. There's lots of different portrait groups. But my unassigned folder, you can see I have 17. Hopefully no one has that many. Hopefully you have 0, but if you might have a couple. What that means, again, is possibly at picture day or when we got the data from the school, particular student didn't have data. So when we photographed them, either the data was incorrect or we didn't have it. So instead of going into their appropriate homeroom, they're going into this unassigned folder or their appropriate grade. So your job as the yearbook advisor is to get in here and determine and work with the school to determine like where Karen is supposed to be, what grade is she supposed to be in, what homeroom. And then you can simply click on Karen's picture, and under group affiliation here, you can apply her to the correct grade or the correct homeroom and go ahead and click add and save. And that will move them out of your unassigned images. Just a note, and a school actually pointed this out to me the other day. She had a couple students who no longer go to school there. They dropped out at the very beginning of the school year, so she went ahead and removed them. When you remove an image from your portrait library, it goes into the unassigned. So it's never deleted, which is a good thing. We want them to be somewhere just in case something happens and we have to move them back in, but they go into that unassigned folder. So if that happens, yes, you are going to have that unassigned thing, the unassigned alert on your dashboard. You'll just have to ignore it. But at least you should know that it's only like that image that is no longer goes to school there, or whatever the situation is that you're not using in the yearbook. So they would be in the unassigned folder. All right, going back to your portrait images. When you get these, it's generally important to make sure everything is correct. As I talked about, there are mistakes that happen with data. We do get the data from the school at the very beginning of the school year, sometimes before even school even starts. So sometimes there are issues with the data. Possibly there was issues at, picture day where a student, said the wrong name. Either way, it's important to make sure everything is correct before we move the portraits onto the page. You can do that. There's a couple different things you can do. So if you are an elementary school, you can click on the homeroom and you can export that data. So that classroom. There they are. I downloaded them. There they are. You can either email this to teachers or you can print them out and give them to teachers. You can send them to the school to print out, obviously, or print them out at the school. You can print them in black and white, obviously not in color, but give them to the teachers to edit. Very important, because the teachers know their classroom better than anyone. They can quickly get in, edit the students. and then get that back to you, and you can make the changes on the yearbook site. I usually recommend only giving, I usually like a couple days. If it tends to be longer, if you give them longer periods of time, it can get forgotten, and then you're not going to get those edits back. Again, you can email them, but sometimes with email, they're not, they're having to print them out. And again, if you want to get those edits back as quickly as possible, I just recommend printing those out. If you have a middle school or high school, obviously that changes things a little bit. I do usually recommend at the middle school or high school level that if you have a yearbook class, that's great. You can assign one or two of your editors or more responsible students to go through the portrait library just to make sure everything looks correct, or you yourself as the advisor can do it, or have another teacher do it. But again, really important to kind of go through there to make sure everything looks correct. If you see a student that's missing, you can always search them up. So again, in the main screen here that I'm looking at, I can just go to the search subject, and I can type in that person's name. And if they are included anywhere in this portrait library, they will show up. So you can type in just their first name, just their last name. I typed in Smith. There's all the students with the last name Smith or staff. And then I can find that missing. Oh, it looks like, John was photographed. And I can click on John's picture and say, okay, it looks like he was put in the wrong homeroom. So I need to remove that homeroom. And then I'm going to add him under the correct homeroom here. And then I'm going to save that. And that will move him out of the incorrect homeroom into the correct homeroom. And some other things that you're going to run into is editing an image and retake images. So I'm trying to find where all my images are, but we are just going to click on this one. I'm not sure if this one has retakes. No. Okay. So for retake images, again, your portraits are not uploaded until after retake day. And you will notice students with a retake image are going to have a 2 at the top left of their image. You're going to see a 2 like circled. That means that they had a retake. The retake, it always defaults to the retake image. So the image that you're looking at on your screen is going to be the retake image. I would just leave it at that. If a parent does reach out, or the student, and says, you know what, I really prefer my original image, totally fine. You can click on that student. The retake again will be highlighted. Their original image will be next to that. You can simply select the original image and save, and then it will switch over to their original image. If you do have to change any names, so let's say that they go by a different name or the name is wrong, again, you can click on their name and pulls up that edit subject information screen. This is where we make any changes to the portraits in the portrait library, is this edit subject information screen. And you can simply click on the name. So this is the name that we have in our records, or the school had in their records. We can check this box. Now it will allow you to change that name. If anyone, again, we had spoke to them being in the wrong homeroom or the wrong grade, that's under group affiliation. And you can just scroll down here, select the correct homeroom, select grade, add it, and then remove them from any homeroom that they're not listed in. Just a note for staff, which actually just popped into my head here. Staff is listed in 2 different sorts generally. If you are a homeroom sort, they are listed under staff. If you are a grade sort, they're listed under STA. They are supposed to be listed under both, but every once in a while they only get listed under one. So I have seen cases of like an elementary school using the staff sort, but realizing that they're missing some teachers. And so they look and they're in the STA sort. So that would be an example of when you would go into that different sort under the grade, go to that STA sort, and you can move them into the staff sort so they're all in one group, and then it makes it easier to flow. Speaking of defaults and setting them up for grade or homeroom, if I go to Book Builder, and I'm going to jump to this really quick, I meant to do this first and forgot, but under Book Builder, contract and book settings, there are a couple of defaults that you want to make sure are set correctly before you start working in your portrait library. One of them is the portrait flow options. So this is what I was just talking about as far as the homeroom or the grade sort. Obviously, if you're a middle school, high school, you're going to have that grade sort available. If you're an elementary school, generally teacher classroom. If you're a K through 12 building, then you can have either one selected as a default, but then when you go to your portrait library, you can select that additional grade. So you're able to see grade and teacher and homeroom. Not pictured students. This is crucial. If anyone hasn't done this yet, this is crucial to select before you start flowing portraits. What that means is you have the option to have the not pictured students either listed listed alphabetically or listed as a not picture icon, which looks like this. And you select the icon you want. If you select the icon, when those portraits flow, you're going to have like that clip art icon in place of their photo. Preferably, I wish it would, I prefer the not pictured. It just depends, honestly, like what your personal preference is. We do feel that most people prefer not pictured. It does not default to that though. It defaults to the not pictured icon. So if you haven't changed that, what will happen is you will go in, you'll flow all your portraits, realize you don't want that icon in here, and the only way to change it back is to unflow all of your portraits. Once those are unflowed, then you can get in here and change it back to the list. So do make sure that's done before you start flowing, just to save you the extra step of having to unflow all your portraits in order to see that. All right, so now we can jump back. Now that we covered that, we can jump back to the portrait library. All right, two other things that I want to cover. And then we're going to briefly, Indy's going to jump in and share some kind of cool example of how we can change the background for students that were not pictured, but adding an image. So adding a record to your portrait library. Let me go into a class here. A couple different examples here. We could, let's say we have a new student who just came to the school from a different school. We can get their image, like whether we get the image from the other school or we take a picture of them. But let's say we take a picture from like the waist up, which is what I recommend. I do not recommend taking one from the shoulders up, because what will happen is when we upload it to the yearbook site, they'll have a big head and we won't be able to crop that. But from the waist up, we can crop it better to match these images. And we can do that by going to add subject. I'm sorry, new record. And then we can put in their first, their last name, and add image. So you will, if you choose to photograph any students that were not pictured on picture day, you can do that and upload them into your image library. Once they're uploaded into their image library, that's where you'll follow these steps in your portrait library, where you'll add the image. It'll automatically take you to your portrait library, and then you can find their image, select use image, and it will go back to this screen. Their image will be in there. You'll have their first name, their last name. They'll already be in their homeroom, and then you just click save, and it will automatically put them in with their classmates alphabetically, and then they're good to go. But in regards to photographing a student, lots of times we have schools wanting to match that gray background. So we recommend that they take it up against a solid wall, a solid white wall if you can, if you're able to, but you can again change that background. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to Indy now, and she's going to share how you can change the background via Canva. And then we'll come back to me just for a little bit in Page Builder.
Stacy, we do have one question, but I'm not sure what she means on this. Carol's asking, add a title to the staff, for example, principal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that's a great question. That's actually on my list to cover. So once we jump into Page Builder, we'll go ahead and cover that. Thank you, Carol.
Okay. Sorry, let me get myself up here. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Perfect. Yes. Okay, so we will provide you with the background. It's not exact, but it is what we use for schools that do want to replace the background and don't want to have just awkward backgrounds flown into their yearbooks. So Canva is a great tool. If you don't have Canva, I highly suggest it. They do have Canva for education. So if you guys don't have a Canva account, you can go to canva.com/education. And if you're a teacher, you can get it for free. Absolutely love Canva. So what I'm going to do is create a new design. So this is going to be what the main page looks like once you log in. I'm going to create a new one, and I am going to do a custom size. I'm going to do a 2.5 by 3.5 inch. So I would typically enter that in here and then make sure that I click inch, but I've recently just did this. And I've already uploaded everything, so you would basically upload your images that you want. And then with the background that we provide you, I think it's very easy. You can either stretch it right to this page here, or you can right click it and set as background. And as many students as you have or staff members that you have that you want to do, you can just go ahead and put one on the first one and then just duplicate it. This makes your job a little bit easier. Now I'm going to take the images that I have. And just like she said, if you have someone that's up against the plain background, it's going to be great. Once you add that person onto the page, there's a button up the top that says background remover. Go ahead and click on that. And it's that easy. So now I'm just going to go ahead and align him. Perfect. Now I'm going to go to the next one. And this is my daughter. And you can see that this was from Christmas. When I remove her background, you can tell that she's not against the back wall, but you know, in some cases you're going to get what you can get. And you would do the same thing for all the images. Very simple. And once you have them all, then you can just go ahead and share. You're going to select download and keep it as a PNG because that's going to give you the best for print. And I typically like to keep it between like a 175 and a 2. And then you're just going to select download if you want all the pages that you created. And then now that you download them, they'll be available for you to upload them back into the portrait library where Stacy was at.
All right, awesome. See, it's as easy as that. So that takes us back to your portrait library.
And Kristen's asking, how can we get the background image? Is that something our specialist can give us?
Yes, I will go ahead and share that out. I don't know, Indy, if you're able to upload it to the
chat. I can try to upload it to the chat right now.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
But I can share that out as well. Okay. So before we jump to Page Builder, I just wanted to cover one other thing. I was going through my notes that I didn't cover with staff. So sometimes with the staff images, and thank you, Carol, reminded me with your question, but with the staff images, you will want them in a specific order other than alphabetically. So if that is the case, you will notice if they are listed as staff and not students. So as long as they are listed as staff, you will see these little arrows above their image. So if you have to move, let's say, the principal into that first spot instead of alphabetically, you can just click on that arrow and see it quickly moves their image into that first spot. So we always get questions on that. So I just want to make sure that we covered that you can move them by just clicking on those arrows, and then you're able to manipulate how they are flowed into the portrait or into Page Builder, which is where we will head next. So I'm going to go, I'll start from ladder diagram. And I think I'm going to go on page 14 and 15 is where we'll do the example here. All right, so hopefully by now you guys have your portraits at least on your page. You've determined what portrait layouts you're going to use. If you have not yet, just a quick reminder, you can go to layouts. You can go to portrait layouts, and we have a ton to choose from right here. The difference you'll notice, you'll see like P104 and P104B. B stands for border. So if you are using a border, which we don't see borders a lot anymore, but if you are using borders, let's say you have like for the graduating class, like the 2026 border, you want to make sure you select the appropriate portrait layout. And so you would want to do 104B. In this case, I believe I have done 115. Yes, 115. So I found 115. I dropped it onto the page. If you decide you don't like that one, you know you can easily drop a new layout on there to change that. Once I have my layout, I do want to quickly go through. We did cover this in our fall session, but I want to go through how to edit a portrait layout and before we flow the portraits on there. The easiest step in this whole entire process is filling your portraits, which is wonderful. So once you have edited those portraits and you know everything looks good and you have your layout placed on your pages, the process to flow the portraits is the easiest thing. It's just a one-click process, which we'll go through here in a moment. So this is the layout that I have selected. I do want to make some changes to it before I start flowing my portraits. A couple of things that I want to think about. How many students are in my largest classroom? So if I am a homeroom sort, an elementary school, let's say, you want to think of 28 is my largest classroom. So I want to make sure my portrait layout at least works for 28 students. It's okay if I have less students in a class, those boxes will just be there. They won't even be empty. They just won't appear when you flow. But we want to make sure we at least have enough boxes for those 28 students. That is important because if I have 27 boxes and a couple classrooms with 28 students and I go to flow those onto the page, it won't let me. It's going to ask to apply another page, which we don't want to generally do. So again, think of your largest class size when you're working on these portrait layouts. So I know that I don't need this many. I have, like, my largest class is 25. So I'm going to go ahead and edit. I'm going to go ahead and edit my layout. I'm going to do that by clicking on my tools button. So we know that by now, hopefully we know that anytime we're making any changes to a page, we do that under tools, whether it's changing a photo, editing a photo, a shape, or your portraits or your text. So I'm going to click on that tools. And then these are all the tools that I have to change my portrait layout. So we'll start at the top, portrait frame. Right now we just have the square frames. You could do the oval, or you could do the curved edges, which I like. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then I do want to put a border around the portraits. Let's say I want to do a different color border for each classroom or each grade. So all my first graders are going to have the orange. So I'm going to kind of go with the orange theme for my first graders. I added that. And now I'm going to go to portrait size. This is where you want to kind of start thinking about, especially if you're a middle school, high school, how many pages do you want to use for your portraits? So the same goes into play when you're thinking about 560 freshmen. So I have 560 freshmen. I have 25 boxes that I want to use. So I divide that by the 560, and that will tell me how many pages I need for my freshman students. So again, definitely a little extra work when you're laying it out, but once it's laid out, as long as you've done it correctly, it makes it super easy to flow your portraits and you're not going to run into any issues there. So I want to change this to head size C. Okay, so I know that allows enough for my 25, but you can see the difference now, and that's kind of what I wanted you guys to see, is the difference between the layouts. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so you can see the difference between my left-sided page and the right-sided page with some of the changes that I've made so far. And then I'm going to go to Portrait Panel. This allows me to remove rows, remove columns, or add. So if I wanted to remove a row at the bottom, I could do that, because I would still have enough. Or no, not quite. So, okay, so either way, for example, we'll go ahead and remove that row. And then the panel spacing. Panel spacing just means the space in between the portrait boxes. So I want to add a little more space here. This will come into play if we are adding any teacher titles, which we'll get to here shortly. Okay, so that looks good. So I like how that's set up. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit back. My names, I want them to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 8.5. Name placement obviously is good for now. So that looks much better. I think I'm going to go ahead and change my shape to orange. All right, perfect. So that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and make the same changes to the right-handed page to make sure everything is the same. And then I'm going to go ahead and under more actions, I'm going to save it as a custom layout. The reason I want to do that is I don't want to repeat this step for every single homeroom or every single grade page. I want to be able to do it one time, knowing that that's the right amount of boxes, that's the right size. All I'm going to have to change is the color. If I want to do, red for the second graders, all I have to do is change that border color and that shape. But other than that, I know the spacing is exactly the same, and I'm going to save it as a custom layout. Once I do that, then I can go up here and I can go to my layouts and I can go to my custom layouts. And that's where I'm going to find my custom portrait layouts, and I can just easily drop them onto the page. Once that's done, then, and you've applied all your layouts to the pages, that's when you can start to flow your portraits. So I'm going to go to my portrait images. I'm going to go to my teacher sort. And I'm going to drop them right onto this page. And there they are. So like I said, that's the easiest part about all of this is flowing the portraits, which as long as you are, have set everything up correctly, edited your portraits, laid out your pages correctly, then this process hopefully is much easier and you don't have to go back to reflow or unflow your portraits. If you have a grade sort, you're going to do the exact same process. You have to make sure that your layouts, if you want your layouts set up correctly, make sure they're all set up for, let's say, all of 9th grade or all of 10th grade. And then you're going to take your 9th grade students. We'll just grab 3rd. We'll pretend like this is 9th grade. And you're just going to do the same thing. You're going to drop them onto that first page, and they will flow alphabetically from left to right, starting at your first 9th grade page. And hopefully, if you've calculated correctly, they'll end up, at the last page. And you'll notice again that I only had, I didn't have quite that many students. So you don't see empty boxes here. It's just empty space. So that's where you can add, if you wanted to add a quote, pictures, depending on how much space you have. Sometimes with the grade sorts, you'll have like a whole half a page left once they all flow. So that's where you can add, get, again, additional pictures of the students, quotes, clip art that can all be added in that extra space right there. Now, the teacher, you're probably wondering, where is the teacher? Well, with this particular layout, I purposely selected this one so you guys could see the steps, because we do get this question a lot, is how do I, when I select this particular layout or layout similar where the teacher box is separate from the students, this box right here is considered an image box. These are portraits right here, portrait boxes. So with the image box, that teacher is not going to flow in there automatically, which is fine. I can simply just go to my teacher. Now, let's pretend like she is in this classroom, or I take that. So you open it up this way. So let me show you that, and then we'll go through another step here. So we click on that arrow. We find our teacher group. Here's all my teachers. So all my teachers have been moved into a new group in the portrait library, which I can show you how to do that. You will want to do that if you're using a layout where the teacher is separate from the portrait images, because if she is with her students and you flow, then she will flow with the students in the boxes. She'll flow first, but she will flow in these boxes. If that's the layout you selected, that's totally fine. But if you want the teacher to have a larger photo, then you don't want her to flow down here. So that's where you would, in the portrait library, create a new group, and you would use that process where we go to group affiliation and move people around. You would move that teacher into that new group, and you would just name it like, homeroom teachers, and move them all into that group, just the homeroom teachers. And then that way you can easily locate them here. And we'll pretend like this says homeroom teachers. And then we'll just find that teacher and we just drop her right into that box. So again, if you do select a layout like this, that is an extra step. So keep that in mind, depending on how much time you want to contribute to the portraits. That is something to think about. So if we go to layouts, was there a question? Okay. If we go to layouts and then your portrait layouts, you'll see the difference here. Like here's one with the image box separate where you would have to drag it in. Another really popular one are these. Sometimes the teachers put down here at the bottom. Same with this one. There's one other one. Oh, this one's a real popular one. So again, the teacher's placed right here on this layout. So something to keep in mind when you're selecting your layouts, that is a little bit of an extra step. It doesn't take too long, but you will have to create that new group in your portrait library, put your homeroom teachers in there, and then drag them manually onto the page. Now, if you have any students where you took their photo, you replaced the background, but they're not quite matching up with the students on the page, you can edit them by clicking on this little edit button here. It looks like a pencil. It's right next to your tools button. And then I click on the student that I need to crop. I double click, and it's the same kind of process as when you were cropping a photo. Is I can zoom in or zoom out to match them up with the other images. Something to keep in mind, if I do that and I have to unflow for any reason, let's say I forgot a student that I have to add, you will have to recrop it after you flow it. So speaking of unflowing and reflowing, if the goal is to hopefully have all your edits completed so you're not having to unflow it or anything, but sometimes things happen where you have new students, obviously, that come to the building and you need to add them to the classroom. So if that is the case, you simply just click on that wonderful tools button, reflow, unflow, and then you can do that here. The difference between reflow and unflow, if I have added a student into Mrs. Smith's homeroom class via the portrait library. So I'm in my portrait images. I've added that student to Mrs. Let's say this is Mrs. Smith's classroom. Then I can go back to her class. That change has not been applied yet. So if I make a change to a name, if I add a photo, that change hasn't been applied until I go to reflow group. When I reflow that group, that will apply that change. Now, if I want to unflow, again, same process here, and then I go to unflow group. Now, you will have to, if you have a group sort that goes against multiple pages, so let's say a middle school or a high school, 9th grade, 10th grade, what have you, then you will have to unflow and then drag and drop the images again to apply any changes. So that's why we always say it's important to make as much of the edits ahead of time before you start to flow. As you can see, the flow process is super easy. So you really don't have to flow you can wait. I have some schools who wait towards the very end to flow the portraits just because they want to make sure that, let's say I have a school that has a lot of new students that come in during that second semester. They'll just wait to flow them until they know they have everyone. But you can see the unflow, reflow process is pretty simple. As far as adding a title underneath, that is one of those things that takes a little more time as well. And I do recommend a layout that has the names underneath. So we will drop in, and then this is the last thing I'll cover before we jump over to Pam. She has a couple quick marketing updates, and then we can go into any questions you guys have. I'm able to jump back on the website. But so I've selected this layout for my staff. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my changes. So I don't need this many boxes. I'll make them a little bit bigger so you guys can see them. Portrait panel, adjust that. Okay, so this is where the vertical panel spacing comes into play because I want to add a title underneath their name. So I can go ahead and do that here. And then I usually recommend flowing them. So you want to flow them into place. And then once they're done, you can click on that edit tool. You can right click and then you can edit subject. And that allows you to type in that title underneath. So you can add the title there. I do have some schools who will add the title in the portrait library, but there's really not, right now, there's not a space to add a title in the portrait library. You would have to add it behind their last name. And that gets a little tricky as far as flowing since it's flowed alphabetically. Indy or Pam, if you have any suggestions on adding titles, but this is generally how I recommend doing it is once you flow them, you have to make sure that you do the name under, and then you can add the title just by typing it in. That box will appear for you guys right here once it's flowed, and you just click in that text box and you can add their title there. Andy or Pam, do you guys have any tips?
That's what I recommend too, because it helps out with consistency. The other thing that you could do too is if you needed to, is you could add a text box underneath the name if you needed to, and then type in principal or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, you can. Yeah, depending on what layout you have, you're able to add a text box, and then you can just do that copy paste feature to make sure they're all the same size and place them underneath the name. So then you can add that title there.
And one of the things that someone, James had asked is, will we be covering accommodating longer hyphenated surnames and also adding middle initials to students?
So I believe the middle initial would have to be, so that can be added, I believe, under their title, under their name in the portrait library, if that's something that they want. Like the names that we have are the names that we have from the school. So whatever names the parent submits to the school is the data we have and that we upload. So again, if you find where someone is not listed correctly, then yes, you can edit that in that portrait library under that edit image container. As far as longer names, yes, you can, because I have a couple schools where depending on what layout they pick, we have issues with like the names running towards the end. And there's a couple different things you can do. One is just to select a layout that accommodates for longer names, where you have more space between the margin lines and where the names are. I believe also you can change the text size of the names for the longer names, but the only thing there is you're either going to have a smaller text size for the longer name, or they're all going to be smaller so they can be consistent. It's really just personal preference. I prefer to make sure that you select a layout that allows a little bit more margin space here if you particularly have a lot of students who have longer names. And you can do that by, if I click here and then I go my portrait panel, again, I'm allowed to control a little bit of the horizontal spacing. And you can see that kind of moves them over. And now I've allowed plenty of room to accommodate longer names. Great question. All right, any other questions pertaining to this that you guys want me to cover before we move on?
Nothing else in chat.
All right, so Pam, I will go ahead and have you share marketing.
Sure.
And marketing, again, is super important right now because we obviously want to sell as many. You guys are putting so much work into these yearbooks. We want to make sure we sell as many as possible. And now is the time to market those. So we just have a couple helpful tips and tools that Pam's going to share. And then think of any questions that you have over what we've covered. And then we'll use the rest of the time to go through questions.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Okay. What we found is some schools are looking to add more pages or ways to supplement their yearbook sales. And here's some different ideas to generate more money for your yearbook program. Candygrams, casual day, maybe ads for your last grade at your school, the 5th grade, 8th grade, or seniors. That's another one. At the bottom of individual pages, and you're going to see some samples on my next couple slides, sponsored by, with a business name or even a club or even parents. You could do that. Patrons and businesses we've got as well. And here's some different fundraising ideas. And a lot of times schools like to use that money that can be used for adding more pages or to upgrade their yearbook cover. So there's some different ideas there. And I believe Indy and I are going to maybe try to share some of these ideas out to you because she came up with a really great one that I absolutely love. So one of the things we found about this time of year, it's always a good idea to look and check and see where your yearbook sales are. Do you need help in getting more orders to get to your sales goal? Here's some awesome ideas. And as always, we'd love to hear if you have any other ideas that you're using as well. But one of the things we've got is like a flash sale, setting up a table at your major events for back to school night, if you've got for conferences and things like that, showing behind the scenes, classroom contest, dress down day, earn money for that. Previews of some of the different yearbooks, yearbook pages. Just these are some of the different things, and we're going to be sharing these out for you guys as well. So some really great ideas there. Thanks, Indy, for designing it. We love Canva, don't we, Indy?
Sure do.
And slide 4 over here, here's some different examples of some patron ads, senior ads. Maybe if you're K through 8 building, you can offer maybe those 8th grade ads we talked about, or an elementary, intermediate, where you have students going on to your middle school or junior high next year. What about offering ads for parents to purchase for their students? So that's some different ideas for you. And also sponsor a page. I love this idea, and I know that Ann up in Michigan, she has several schools that do this. Maybe you're limited on spaces as far as different pages. You don't want to add more pages. This is a great idea for you to be able to go ahead and do, is you can just have them sponsor a page. So if there's a club or group or business, or maybe even a personal message for those 8th graders, you could kind of sprinkle those throughout too. And again, you can set those up within your ads. You can charge the parents for that. And the other thing I love this one is no one wants to experience FOMO, fear of missing out. And the same applies for your students. What about having your yearbook staff maybe create a video, then share it with a QR code? So again, just getting a little bit creative and thinking outside the box. Some different marketing ideas we've got over here, your social media marketing, sneak peeks of pages by creating QR codes to show samples, handmade posters and buttons. Did you order your yearbook yet? You're in the yearbook how many times? So those are just some different suggestions for you. And our sneak peeks over here, they're kind of fun. You can also add a little bit of humor in there if you like to. So we all change by a yearbook. So you might want to grab one of your old pictures, or if you've got a blackmail on a staff member that never wants to get their picture taken, you know, and you still have their same picture you're using for 20 years, maybe use theirs as an example. Just kind of promote that a little bit. And the other thing I love is gift certificates. I think that they're awesome. You know, what can you possibly buy for a student that they're going to have 5 months, 5 years, or 50 years from now? It's great to target grandparents, other relatives. They can use it as a birthday gift, Valentine's gift, graduation gift, create flyers and put out on social media. So those are just some different examples. And what have you or your staff created on Canva or other programs to promote your yearbook sales? If you will, share your idea with your yearbook specialist, and we will make sure that we email you a $30 off Shutterfly coupon. That is
Thank
it
you,
for
Pam.
me.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen again. I went ahead and added, I flowed that classroom just so you guys get a better idea of what it looks like to add the titles underneath, or if we have to adjust the name size. So kind of to answer both of those questions. So I went ahead and flowed these portraits. You guys can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, and then I click on my portraits. Again, I'm clicking on that edit tool instead of my tools button. So I'm clicking on the edit tool. I'm clicking on the student that or the staff that I need to add a title, and then I'm right clicking. When I right click, that edits individual student name style is going to pop up. And you can see right there, that's where I'm going to add that title. So I double click in there, and then it's going to, and then I can, add a comma and add that title underneath. So it's all lined up and centered. And then it gives me my tools button. So if I need to shorten the name or shorten the title because it's too long, I can click on that tools button, and that's where I can change the font and the size. So again, just kind of wanted to go over that. I do have quite a few schools that do put titles underneath their staff. So I wanted to make sure to show you guys what that looks like, the actual process step by step. So again, you flow, you click on the edit tool, and then you right click, and this is just says restore because I went ahead and changed that one already. But it will say edit individual name style. One thing I do want to know is if you do this, I believe if you have to unflow those portraits and reflow them, you will lose that information. Correct? I see Pam shaking her head. Yes. So that's still the case. So if you do have to add titles, do that at the very end. Once you know that you do not have to unflow or reflow the staff for any reason at all, go ahead and make sure everything is in place, and then you can add those titles and save it. You don't have to worry about losing that information. So any other questions you guys have thought of as we've gone through all of this?
Okay, we just had a question that popped up from Kristen. It says, I saw the yearbook showcase winners covers. Any chance we can see the inside pages for layout inspiration? Helpful to see how layouts were utilized, especially those that did the best.
That is a great question. And I've actually already relayed that information to our team because even a lot of us yearbook reps want to see the insides of the pages as well. Because we have shout out to Nagel Middle School, the school I work with. They got first place in the middle school junior high division. So congrats to them. But there are a lot of other awesome winners that I would love to see the insides of their books so I can share it with my schools for inspiration. So we are working on that. Thank you. Any other questions?
You can either type them in chat, or if you'd like to come off of mute and just ask us.
Now is the time. I'm happy to navigate around the website if you guys have any specific questions. Just know when it comes to portraits, again, you guys are going to be working under either portrait images or right there in Page Builder. You can go back and watch the video, watch our short video tutorials, lots of different video tutorials on portraits, and then make sure that you get into your website, if you haven't already, to go under contract and book settings to make sure your defaults are set up correctly. Anything else come up?
Someone's
No,
typing.
Okay. Cool.
It says, any future plans to include other information for flow ability, for example, quotes under each student?
Not that I know of. We have layouts that help with it for senior quotes. I have a lot of senior quote pages, 8th grade quote pages. So we have layouts that work better for that situation if you're wanting to do quotes. I don't know if I can pull up one really quickly here. But you do have to manually type in the quotes. Like as of right now, we don't have a place under, let's say, edit subject information where you can type in the quote and it's going to flow, or a title and it's going to flow with that student. Right now, it would have to be entered into Page Builder, but that is a good question. And one we will add, because I know we've added the question about adding the titles. So that would be considered under that as well. Here's one with the quote. So we do have layouts in place that provide for a quote where you can easily, all the text boxes are already there for you, and then you can just type in those quotes. You can also use, when it comes to the program, there are some shortcuts as far as adding text boxes where you can use the copy paste feature to make sure that you're using the correct size. You can utilize the group function where you're able to group boxes together so you can move multiple text boxes at a time. So if that's something you need help with, just reach out and we'd be happy to help with that. That's some good questions this morning. All right, so it sounds like that is probably it for now. Again, if you have think of anything after this morning's meeting, just reach out to myself or your yearbook representative. And we will, or Indy, did you share that background?
It wouldn't let me.
Okay, so we will share that out in an email to everyone that attended today, so you're able to use that. And remember that you can access this video under our YouTube channel. So thank you guys. I hope this helped.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for attending. If you guys have any questions, make sure you reach out to your yearbook specialist.
And everyone stay safe and warm this week, especially this weekend. I think everyone on this call is going to be experiencing it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. We'll send out a survey to follow up if there's anything that we missed or that you'd like to see more of. So we appreciate you guys joining this morning. Have a good day.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.